On a dark, snowy night, a man kneels on the ground, blood dripping from his mouth after drinking something unknown. The figure before him reveals it's a poison meant to suppress the mana in his veins. Knowing it would only last a few minutes, the man had added more toxins to make it stronger. The poison guy asks the reason, and the standing figure coldly replies, "His power has no place in the future of the United Empire. Though useful in war, it now serves only to cause unease." The kneeling man stares at his bloodied hands, longing to clean them, even for a moment. He wanted to make amends for the lives taken by his magic and for the loved ones others have lost because of him. Looking at his pal, he confesses his long-standing fear of Ian. Turns out Ian's an 8th-class magician with enough power to bring down the whole darn empire. That's a pretty scary thought, huh? So our guy decides it's time to say goodbye, forget about forgiveness, and just set the place on fire. Ian feels a wave of anger toward Ragnar and blames himself for being careless. At the same time, he knows Ragnar has made his own mistakes. Ian regrets the choices that led him here, but he has been searching for a way to make things right. He retrieves a dagger infused with time magic. If he stabs himself in the heart before the poison fully spreads, he can recover his magic. He grips the dagger and plunges it into his heart, determined to fix his mistakes. He wants to set everything right. As it remains in his chest, he casts a spell that forms a glowing magic circle around him. Memories of his first encounter with Ragnar and his shadowed self flood his mind in a hazy torrent. Just like that, he's transported to a whole new location. Peering down at his body, he futilely hunts for the missing dagger. Surprise! No pain to be found. Bewildered, he hears his name being called. Swiveling around, he is left dumbfounded. In front of him stands his mother, who had passed away years ago, looking completely healthy. With a smile, she casually asks if everything is okay, as if it's the most normal thing in the world. Ian is completely lost. Did his grand plan actually work, or is this some kind of cosmic joke? Glancing around, he sees children getting ready for their exams, knights maintaining order, and a white flag fluttering atop the ivory tower, and then it hits him slowly like a ton of bricks. He has time-traveled 30 years into the past. The children stand in line for the mana reaction test, a required assessment for all 12-year-olds in the Green River Empire. This test is the first step in creating magicians, the kingdom's greatest strength. The first part measures the mana brain, which reveals magical potential. The second part tests the mana heart, which generates, circulates, and stores mana. Those who pass both parts are sent to the Magic Academy and gain national authority after graduation. Ian realizes he has traveled 30 years back in time, much further than he expected. He remembers studying the dragon's language, the root of magic, and the time magic he mastered as part of his penance. That magic worked just before his death. His original goal was to atone for his sins, but the memories of those who sacrificed everything for him and the lives lost in his name flood his mind. Ian once swore loyalty and friendship to Ragnar, but was betrayed and left with nothing in the end. Ian refuses to let history repeat itself and vows to change this life and become stronger. To do that, he must regain the power of an 8th-class magician and surpass it, but first he needs to find the strength within himself. He tells his mother he will be back soon and walks up to one of the guards. He introduces himself along with the village he comes from. The guard immediately recognizes his name and identifies him as Vanessa's son. Without delay, the guard allows Ian to enter but advises him not to bother the magician with unnecessary questions. Inside, the man in charge of the mana test looks tired. He asks Aaron, the guard Ian just spoke to, how many children are still waiting. Aaron replies that there's at least half a day's work left. As they talk, Ian steps into the room. The man gestures for Ian to come closer and explains that he will stimulate Ian's mana brain using mana. He warns that the process might make Ian feel a little dizzy but asserts the feeling won't last long. When the man asks Ian to turn around, he hesitates for a moment. Growing impatient, the man urges him to hurry. He informs Ian that he has detected a mana brain, meaning Ian has the potential to change his future. However, the man still needs to check for a mana heart in his chest. As the test begins, Ian realizes that simply joining the academy will not be enough to achieve his goals. Determined to stand out, he casts both a fireball and a water spell simultaneously, showing off his ability to dual cast. Everyone in the room is stunned. Such a feat is unheard of for someone his age. Ian, on the other hand, plays dumb, acting as if he has no idea how he managed to pull off those spells out of thin air one fine day. The man in charge grows suspicious and asks Ian if he has had any training. Ian denies it. To be sure, he uses a detection spell to check if Ian is lying. The spell detects tiny changes in the body like heartbeat patterns, and warns Ian that lying could lead to severe punishment, not just for him, but for his family and neighbors, who might even face execution if the truth is hidden. Ian stays calm and confidently says he would never lie in such a serious situation. To everyone's shock, the detection spell shows he is telling the truth. The man is left confused and uneasy, unsure of who Ian really is. A few moments later, Ian steps outside. To his horror, he sees his mother being dragged away by force. She is jested and helpless to call for help. She struggles and protests against her treatment, but the man sneers at her, calling her a lowly being and saying she isn't even worth selling. The insult fuels Ian's anger, and he steps forward, ready to confront the man. Before he can act, the examiner places a steady hand on Ian's shoulder, calming him. The examiner then steps forward to handle the situation himself. He asks the man what is going on. The guy lies, saying there is no problem. The examiner doesn't hesitate and declares that Ian has officially passed the mana test and is now recognized as a mage. He reminds the man that magicians have authority equal to nobles and warns that disrespecting one is the same as defying the emperor, a crime punishable by death. The man's face turns pale as he realizes the seriousness of his actions. He falls to his knees, bowing his head and begging Ian for forgiveness. Ian remains calm, but his gaze turns icy. He asks the man why he is apologizing to him when it is his mother who deserves the apology. He turns to her, begging for forgiveness and admitting his mistake. She stays silent, too shaken to respond. Ian doesn't hold back as he confronts the man, informing him that he's well aware of his nasty tactics. With a cunning smile, he advises the dude to keep this encounter in mind as a cautionary tale to share with others, hinting that he'll be keeping a close eye on him. The examiner overhears and expresses amazement, noting how rare it is for someone so young to achieve this. He praises Ian's talent and intelligence, though steels himself for the inevitable chaos ahead. Late at night, the man who tormented Ian's mother paces angrily, plotting revenge. A cold voice halts him. Ian. Before he can react, Ian paralyzes him with a spell. He steps closer, reminding him of his warning and questioning his cruel words. The man trembles as Ian declares that by morning the world will believe he drowned, drunk, and disgraced. Ian shoves him into the water. As the man splashes helplessly, Ian hesitates, guilt flickering in his mind. He thinks about the purpose of his time magic and the years he spent seeking forgiveness for the lives he destroyed. He knows true redemption is impossible, but he resolves to protect those he loves, even if it means darkening his soul further. His anger toward this guy and Ragnar hardens, giving him clarity about the burden he carries. Exhausted, he leans against a door, his head hurting from mana depletion. His small, young body frustrates him, its weakness compared to his former strength. With a sigh, he closes his eyes, silently wishing for the power that time and growth will bring. Ian wonders aloud about his future. After a year, he'll achieve the prestigious status of a first-tier magician at the academy. It's a big deal, but there's a cloud hanging over his triumph. Thoughts of his mother, abandoned at the Mogrian estate and ultimately perishing, plague his mind. She never got to witness his success or revel in his newfound riches. The guilt from his past life weighs on him, driving him to protect those he loves in this life. He vows to his mother that he will ensure her happiness and keep her safe. The loss of a dear friend and his failure to protect his family still haunt him, but they fuel his resolve. He will not live in a world where he can't protect those closest to him. In the Empire's capital, Emperor Terry consults Herbert Leon, a fifth-class magician and head of the Ivory Tower, about a pressing matter. Herbert cautiously suggests a possibility. The mana flowing through the Emperor's blood could be harnessed to awaken magical abilities. He explains that stimulating the mana brain with specific techniques could enable magic use, a method practiced by many magicians, including himself. Even those who claim to be self-taught often achieve first-class magic, akin to the legendary first mage. Herbert shares a story about the first magician who long ago discovered that mana could be shaped and controlled. With no formal training, he was able to use magic, making him a legendary figure in magical history. Many now see him as a myth. Terry, skeptical, asks if Herbert means a dragon. Herbert denies it, dismissing dragons as fantasy but affirms the first magician's existence as fact. This leaves Terry pondering his own potential as a magician. Herbert stresses that even someone as powerful as Terry, the Emperor, must understand the past to grasp the present. He admits the story of the first magician is hard to believe, especially for someone logical like Terry. Herbert insists that only witnessing the truth firsthand can convey its significance. He assures Terry that the magician sent to the Mogrian estate is reliable and not deceitful. However, if the tale is accurate, the mage's abilities could be dangerously powerful. He refuses to share more, leaving Terry with this ominous thought. Terry, reflective, asks if the prince is outside. Herbert confirms, and Terry calls him in. The prince enters casually, unfazed by the delay, and asks his father what's going on. Terry notes Hayden's curiosity and reminds him his last outing beyond the palace was 5 years ago during a patrol for a poor harvest. Surprising Hayden, Terry permits him a brief trip outside, an unprecedented gesture. Hayden, astonished, asks if he can truly leave to sightsee. Terry reassures him, detailing the escort, secondary royal knights, 300 soldiers, and 3 third-class magicians. Terry tasks Hayden with visiting the Mogrian estate to bring back Ian. When Hayden appears unfamiliar with the name, Terry chastises him for neglecting imperial affairs and considers assigning the task to a prince from Catherine's line. Hayden objects, pleading for the chance to prove himself. He promises to complete the mission without error. After a pause, Terry agrees and instructs Hayden to prepare for the journey north. Herbert, standing aside, announces his departure to make preparations. When Terry questions his need to prepare, he explains that magicians dislike leaving the palace and require persuasion to ensure 3 will accompany Hayden. Terry agrees, acknowledging the challenge. Herbert exits and encounters a man waiting outside. The man bows respectfully and asks if Herbert is heading to the ivory tower. Herbert replies that he has a brief stop before going there. The scene transitioned to Ian reflecting on the ivory tower and the royal family, expecting swift action after his immediate recognition as a mage. He's certain the news reached the higher-ups immediately, just as he anticipated. The Empire is urgently looking for someone to accompany Prince Hayden Greenriver, even though the head of the ivory tower is already supporting the 5th prince, Ragnar. Ian knows the tower will need more magicians, which might cause tension with the royal family. As he ponders this, he wonders whether to side with the Emperor, the Tower Master, or follow his own path. One thing is clear, his abilities are unmatched, and this time, he refuses to let anyone control him. While deep in thought, he hears someone calling his name from outside. He learns that the Emperor has issued a command for him. Surprised by how fast the royal family is acting, Ian opens the door to find the examiner who helped him earlier, now holding the royal order. The man tells Ian that he's been officially called upon, and must now learn the art of respecting the Emperor. He orders our lad to kneel on one knee and place his hand over his heart, which Ian nails perfectly. For a split second, the man hesitates, questioning whether this is genuinely Ian's inaugural attempt at it. The royal command is formally presented to Ian, officially recognizing that he has answered the Emperor's summons. It states that the Emperor greatly values Ian's abilities and declares him the Empire's magician. Additionally, the Emperor orders that Ian's name be added to the Ivory Tower's prestigious registry and invites him to the Imperial Palace. To ensure Ian's safe journey, the Emperor has sent his eldest son, Prince Hayden, to accompany him. As Ian listens, he begins to suspect there might be more to the Emperor's invitation than meets the eye. Meanwhile, knights arrive at Ian's estate and ask the man if they can take Ian to the Lord's castle. After receiving permission, one of the knights steps forward and introduces himself as Arnold, captain of the Mogrian Knights. Arnold explains that their territory has been entrusted with the honor of escorting both Prince Hayden and Ian. He assures Ian of his safety during the journey and asks if he is ready to depart immediately. At the Lord's castle, Marcus Mogrian, the ruler of the Mogrian territory, warns Ravi and Margaret to choose their words carefully when addressing Ian. Marcus emphasizes that despite Ian's youth, his talent has earned the Emperor's recognition. He advises them to treat Ian with the utmost respect and even suggests building a friendly relationship with him, as doing so could only be advantageous given Ian's growing influence. At the castle, the Lord warmly greets Ian, recognizing his importance as someone favored by the Emperor. Within days of Ian's arrival, rumors spread among the maids. One claims to have seen him conjure fire, while another acknowledges his worth as a magician, noting his relentless 15-day training on the grounds. At the training grounds, Ian is focused on mastering his frost magic. He successfully freezes a section of the field, but he feels unsatisfied. His efforts seem small compared to his achievements in his past life, where he once froze not just the training grounds but the entire Mogrian castle. Ian acknowledges that his current body is still weak and that he needs to find a way to compensate for his limited mana reserves. The gap between his past and present abilities weighs heavily on him, but it also fuels his resolve to grow stronger. While Ian is lost in thought, working on his magic, a panicked man suddenly rushes toward him. The man, visibly distressed, pleads for Ian's help. He explains that Lord has gone missing after heading out on a goblin hunting expedition. He had been accompanied by Ravi and a group of knights, but none of them have returned. Despite deploying every available resource to search for them, the search parties have come back empty-handed. Desperation is evident in the man's voice as he looks to Ian, hoping that the young magician might have a solution to their dire situation. Ian is stunned by the news of disappearance, but he quickly gathers his thoughts. In his past life, Lord Marcus had met his end at the hands of an enemy assassin just before the First War of Unification. That war is still years away in the current timeline. Ravi abandoned the territory in its most vulnerable moment. His betrayal led to his execution after the war's conclusion. Maintaining his composure, he suggests that the distressed man seek out magician Marco for assistance, noting that Marco would be more equipped to handle the situation. However, the man informs Ian that Marco is currently outside the territory on another mission. This unusual detail immediately raises Ian's suspicions. Magicians assigned to a territory rarely leave their posts unless the matter is of great importance. Ian begins to suspect that Marco's absence and the Lord's disappearance might somehow be connected, and perhaps even related to his own return to this timeline. The implications of this event trouble Ian deeply. His ability to foresee future events is his greatest advantage, but if Lord Marcus dies prematurely, the timeline could shift unpredictably, and Ian's foresight could become useless. This thought strengthens his resolve to act. He cannot afford to lose the stability of the future he knows or let the Moglian territory spiral into chaos. After a moment of contemplation, Ian makes his decision. He resolves to join the search for Lord Marcus, understanding that his intervention is critical. Ian resolves to go as he needs to prevent the tragedies of his past life from recurring. As Ian prepares to leave, his mother, worried, questions if he can handle the mission. He reassures her with a gentle smile, mentioning his recognized abilities and promising a safe return. His calm confidence eases her concerns. Just as Ian finishes speaking, Margaret, the Lord's daughter, arrives, her face pale with worry. Her voice trembles as she pleads with Ian to bring her father and brother back safely. She offers to speak to her father on Ian's behalf, promising a generous reward for his help. Seeing the despair in her eyes, Ian feels a pang of sympathy. He clasps her hand firmly, vowing to do everything in his power to reunite her with her family. Ian suddenly notices a faint, familiar energy radiating from the ring Margaret is wearing. Intrigued, he asks her if he can examine it. He explains that the ring seems to hold mana and might prove useful in the search. Margaret hesitates only for a moment before handing it to him, her desperation to find her loved ones outweighing any reluctance. Ian studies the ring closely and quickly identifies it. It is the Moglian ring, a low-tier magical artifact designed to enhance the wearer's mana reserves. Ian recalls it from his past life, but what stands out is its significance. Given his limited mana in this life, the artifact could provide a much-needed boost to his magical capabilities. Ian sets off with the man who brought the news. His mind sharpens with focus as he begins the search for Lord Marcus and his companions. When they arrive at the spot where the Lord and his party were last seen, the man points out the area, explaining what little they know. Ian carefully surveys the scene, his instincts immediately telling him that something doesn't add up. He turns to the knight and asks if they've encountered any casualties. The man shakes his head, explaining that they found no bodies but assumed the Lord and his party had been devoured by monsters. Ian, however, is unconvinced. Scanning the area, Ian notices only a few dozen goblin corpses scattered around. Given the hundreds of goblins said to have attacked, their theory doesn't hold water. The absence of any other remains, human or otherwise, gives him hope. This leads Ian to believe there's still a chance to find them alive. Deciding to rely on magic to aid the search, Ian raises his hands and chants softly, summoning a wolf spirit. The knights and the man accompanying him gasp in astonishment as a small, ethereal wolf pup materializes before them. The creature is stunning, its translucent fur shimmering faintly in the light. Ian remembers this spirit well from his past life, a loyal companion and tracker. Though he feels the strain of his limited mana, he knows the wolf's keen senses are their best chance of locating the missing group. The wolf spirit sniffs the ground, its nose twitching as it picks up faint traces of blood and the lingering scent of the Lord's party. Without hesitation, the wolf begins moving, its movements graceful and precise. He issues a firm command to the knights. Follow the wolf. It will lead us to them. The wolf spirit's path takes them through uneven terrain, weaving through the dense forest. Amid the chaos of the goblin battle, Lord and Ravi fight desperately. Marcus, though seasoned, feels his strength waning after hours of relentless combat. His slowed movements and the sheer number of goblins threaten to overwhelm him. Yet despite his exhaustion, he refuses to retreat, determined to protect Ravi and their territory. Turning to Ravi, Marcus orders him to return to the castle, vowing to stay behind with the remaining knights to hold off the goblins. As Ravi hesitates, Marcus urges him to go, and the battle rages on. He steels himself for another wave, his resolve unwavering even as the odds mount against him. Suddenly, a stealthy goblin slips past the defenses and lunges at Marcus, its blade aimed for his back. The attack is swift, leaving no time for him to react. Just as the goblin strikes, Ian appears. His sharp gaze locks on the danger, and without hesitation, he casts Frost Nova. A wave of biting cold surges outward, freezing the goblins instantly and halting their attacks. Marcus, stunned and struggling to process the sudden turn of events, looks toward the source of the magic. His weary eyes meet Ian's, though exhaustion and confusion blur his recognition. For now, Ian's timely intervention has stopped the immediate threat, leaving the battlefield momentarily. The scene transitions to the Empire, where Lord Marcus wakes up, disoriented and unsure of what has happened. Margaret stands nearby, and he immediately asks her about the situation. She explains that he and Ravi have been unconscious for 2 days, expressing concern. Holger, one of his loyal servants, enters the room, visibly relieved to see him awake. However, Marcus's concern lies elsewhere. He quickly inquires about the others, prompting Holger to reveal that 12 soldiers and Sir Roten have not returned. Marcus then asks about the mage, wanting to speak with him. Holger steps outside in search of Ian, and finds him standing alone. Ian, already aware of Marcus's recovery, listens silently as Holger expresses gratitude for his efforts in saving the Lord. Holger relays Marcus's urgent request for a meeting. Ian nods silently and follows him inside. As they enter, they cross paths with the Lord and Ravi in the corridor, both fully dressed and alert. Marcus greets Ian warmly, asking about his well-being. Ian, in turn, asks how he feels. Marcus assures him that he is much better, crediting everyone's care and efforts. He expresses deep gratitude, thanking Ian profusely for securing the Moglian family's future and the estate's foundation. Reflecting on recent events, he considers the significance of Ian's contributions. Having wiped out the goblins in the Moglian Mountains and protected the estate, Ian's efforts cannot go unrecognized. As the Grand Lord of the Empire, Marcus knows the importance of rewarding such loyalty and bravery. After deliberating, he informs Ian that he has chosen a gift to honor his service. Handing him a box, Marcus encourages Ian to open it. Ian's eyes widen as he sees the ring he had borrowed from Margaret. Before he can speak, Marcus calmly explains that he already knew about it. He adds that they thought of it as an old family heirloom, and doesn't fully understand its true power. Curious, he asks if it holds any special benefits for mages. Ian hesitates, but eventually admits that it amplifies his mana and was crucial during the canyon battle. Hearing this, Marcus immediately recognizes how valuable it is. Without hesitation, he tells Ian that the ring is now his and urges him to accept it as a token of gratitude. Ian stands in disbelief, unprepared for such a gesture. The weight of the ring's significance isn't lost on him, but Marcus speaks as if it's a simple gift. Marcus raises his voice to make a formal announcement. Ian will now be the Moglian family's honored guest for eternity. The title, Marcus explains, represents their eternal promise and asks if Ian will accept it along with the ring. The promise is no mere formality, it's a binding contract, recognized across the Empire's nobility, lasting 1,000 years. Marcus assures Ian that the family will always welcome him and provide aid whenever he needs it. To seal the promise, he and Ravi swear upon the northern stream of the Emerald River. Both lower their heads, their pledge extending far beyond the present. Ian, moved by the sincerity in their words and actions, accepts. The next day, Ian and the knights are traveling toward their destination. As they reach a certain point, he turns to the captain and asks how far they are from Lloyd. The captain assures him that they are close, explaining that the town will be visible once they cross the hill ahead. During the journey, Ian's thoughts drift to his conversation with the king about the gift. He inquired about an alchemist on the estate capable of crafting elixirs. Marcus had mentioned an alchemist named Ridio, living in Lloyd. According to him, Ridio and other alchemists had originally come from the capital but relocated north in search of a rare herb found in the region. Though Ian doesn't recall the name Ridio from his past life, the mention of elixirs piqued his curiosity, especially one that might restore his depleted mana. As he and the captain continue talking, one of the knights suddenly points toward the horizon. The knight exclaims that the town is visible from their vantage point. All eyes turn to where the knight is pointing. Smoke rises above the rooftops and distant shouts echo, freezing them in place. Meanwhile, the gangsters move through the town, their blood-covered daggers glinting in the light. Their leader, a towering figure with a cold demeanor, barks orders to regroup. He tells them to hurry, urging the group to head to Coldwood without delay. Amid the chaos, a small boy, Douglas, scrambles through the wreckage, desperate to reach his father. The man, bound and bleeding, can do nothing but watch helplessly as the gangsters toy with him. Despite his injuries, he shouts for his son to run, his voice breaking with fear and desperation. The gangsters pay no mind to the boy's cries. One of them plunges a dagger into the father, leaving Douglas screaming for him. Another one seizes the boy, his grip tight as he sneers. The leader approaches him, dagger in hand, a sinister smile on his face. With chilling calmness, he promises the father that his son will be sold to a nice place, delivering the final blow as he drives the dagger into the man's chest. Douglas watches in paralyzed horror, his small frame trembling as the life leaves his father's eyes. The brutal scene unfolds before him, each moment etched into his memory. Suddenly, a frost spreads, encasing the ground and creeping toward the gangsters. They look around in confusion, their eyes darting for the source. One of them points frantically toward Ian and the knights, shouting a warning. Their leader reacts immediately, barking an order to retreat. In an instant, they all scatter, fleeing in all directions, their bravado replaced by terror. Ian watches them go, his gaze calm yet piercing. The frost fades as he lowers his hand, the ring on his finger glowing faintly. The spell worked flawlessly. A surge of power courses through him. The ring has amplified his mana to rival a third-class magician's strength, a fact he notes with quiet satisfaction. With the danger gone, villagers emerge from hiding, rushing to check on their loved ones. Cries of anguish fill the air as they find family members lying motionless. Ian turns to the captain, his expression steady but concerned. He asked if the knights suffered any injuries. The captain shakes his head, assuring him that everyone is unharmed. Despite the reassurance, Ian's thoughts shift to the alchemists, hoping he survived. A rising commotion catches his attention. Villagers shout Ridio's name, calling out in desperation. Ian stiffens at the mention of the name and quickly pieces things together. Ian approaches and kneels, his voice soft but firm. He gently asks the kid to step aside so he can tend to his father. Ian moves closer, his breath catching as he examines Ridio. There's no blood on the alchemist's body, but his complexion is unnaturally pale, and streaks of white mar his hair. Ian's eyes narrow as the realization strikes. This is mana poisoning. His mind races, recalling the symptoms and the urgency of treatment. There is a disease known as God's Curse, a cruel affliction that ravages those who have a mana brain but lack a mana heart. When too much mana enters the body, it overloads the brain, causing unrelenting pain that never ceases. Ian examines Ridio's symptoms carefully and quickly deduces that the alchemist couldn't have injected mana into himself. The painful truth becomes clear. Someone, likely one of the magicians, must have intentionally caused this condition. After assessing Ridio's critical state, Ian realizes the situation is dire. The only way to temporarily alleviate the pain is to inject pure mana and help release the excess that's trapped inside. Ian gently checks Ridio's forehead and observes his reaction, then turns to the people around him. He instructs them to tend to Ridio's wounds, his voice calm but firm. The man carrying Ridio expresses his gratitude, thanking Ian for his help. As Ian begins to turn away, he feels a tug on his cloak. He looks down to find Douglas, the boy's eyes wide with worry. Douglas asks about his father, seeking reassurance. Ian pauses, weighing his words carefully. He knows that the relief he's given Ridio is only temporary. Injecting mana might ease the pain for a time, but for God's curse, there is no cure. The leftover mana he has injected will remain in Ridio's body, offering only a brief respite. The man will soon face an agonizing decision: continue injecting mana to suppress the pain or die. Ian sighs inwardly, the weight of the situation heavy on his shoulders. Douglas, determined to save his father, dashes away to find a herb, ignoring the man's calls. As the shouts grow faint, Ian's mind drifts back to the name from his past life. Douglas Harmon, the greatest alchemist in history. Once poor, he had risen to prominence as a trusted figure by Emperor Ragnar's side, revered for his genius. Ian recalls Douglas' deep resentment toward magicians. Ian's thoughts shift to the Landier's flower, the rare herb Douglas seeks. Though it can neutralize mana, it's also a poison that affects the blood, and he realizes Douglas might not be aware of the risks. The danger of the flower lingers in his mind. Ian catches up with Douglas, who refuses to turn back. Knowing the forest ahead is fraught with danger, Ian casts a spell to put the boy to sleep. He gently lays Douglas on the ground, ensuring his safety for now. Though it's a difficult choice, Ian knows it's the only way to prevent him from rushing into harm's way. As he watches the boy sleep, Ian reflects on the events that have unfolded. Without him, Ridio would be dead, and Douglas would have been captured by the gangsters. His thoughts wander to the poison from his past life, and he begins to suspect it was created by Douglas under Ragnar's orders. The realization unsettles him. Ian feels conflicted. He briefly entertains the thought of disposing of Douglas, fearing the potential danger the boy might pose in the future. But he knows acting hastily could be disastrous. Douglas possesses extraordinary talent, the potential to become the greatest alchemist ever. Ian considers recruiting him for his cause, but fears Douglas might eventually betray him. The boy's brilliance is a double-edged sword. Just then, the captain arrives, having noticed Ian's departure, and follows him. Upon seeing Douglas asleep on the ground, the captain asks what happened. Ian explains that he put Douglas to sleep to prevent him from acting recklessly. He then asks the captain to help carry the boy back to the village. The captain agrees but observes Ian's hesitation, sensing something is off. Ian, still torn, decides not to return with him. "I have somewhere else to go," he says, leaving the matter of Douglas unresolved for now. One night, Ridio watches over Douglas, who still lies awake in bed. Ridio, now feeling better, reflects on a conversation he had with Barton about the magician who saved them and Douglas's reckless actions. Douglas, restless, explains that he is only trying to find the flower, but Ridio insists it is foolish to venture out with raiders around. Tension rises as Douglas argues he has no choice. His father's suffering leaves him desperate. Ridio, however, claims to feel fine now, needing only Landier's flower. Douglas, bitter and doubtful, has lost faith in its existence after a year's search. As their argument intensifies, a voice suddenly interrupts, claiming that the flower does exist. Both of them freeze, uncertain of the speaker's identity. Ridio cautiously moves to the door and asks who it is. The voice responds, revealing knowledge of their search. Ridio opens the door, and Ian steps inside, his cloak now removed to reveal his face. Douglas immediately recognizes him and shouts in alarm, realizing that he is the mage from earlier. Ridio, still stunned, processes the unexpected turn of events. Ian enters the room and calmly introduces himself. He places an object on the table, drawing Ridio's curiosity. With a deliberate motion, he taps the object, causing it to glow and reveal a delicate flower inside. Ian announces that it is Landier's flower and that he intends to give it to Ridio. However, before doing so, he pauses, his expression serious. He asks how Ridio knew about the flower since its effects are not widely known. Ridio opens the journal his father had given him and points to the page where he discovered the remedy for mana poisoning. He begins reading aloud, describing Landier's flower's unique properties. It neutralizes mana, can only be found in the northern parts of the continent, and has 12 petals. He continues, explaining that its stem and roots contain poison and that the flower dries up immediately after being picked, making it impossible to cultivate. Ian listens carefully as he flips through the journal's pages. Then he asks if Ridio's father had studied alchemy. He nods, confirming that alchemy had been a family business. Ian pauses before explaining that for a magician with both a mana heart and a mana brain, the flower's ability to neutralize mana could be fatal. Ridio responds with certainty, assuring Ian that he understands the risks but insists his family's alchemist would never create something dangerous. His confidence is unwavering to the point that he declares he would bet his family name, Harmon, on it. Meanwhile, Douglas remains silent, his emotions unreadable as he watches the exchange. Ian thanks Ridio for answering his question before taking Landier's flower from the ice crystal where he had preserved it. He explains that freezing was necessary to maintain the delicate flower's shape. Ridio's disappointment is clear as he asks if Ian has tricked him. Ian reassures him, stating that his only goal is to prove that Landier's flower can always be found when needed. Ian shifts the conversation, asking Ridio if he would be willing to make a trade. Ridio, initially confused, asks for clarification. Ian explains that he would inject mana into his regularly to prevent him from succumbing to mana poisoning. In addition, he promises to help Ridio find a way to use Landier's flower. He muses confidence that he can uncover the necessary information, including what Ragnar and Douglas may have gathered about the flower. Ian urges Ridio to come with him to the capital, where he can offer further assistance. Ridio, still uncertain, asks Ian for more details about what he would be doing in the capital. Ian clearly states his request. He wants Ridio to create mana elixirs to restore his own deficient mana. Ridio hesitates, suggesting Ian should seek a famous alchemist instead, as he believes he's not yet an extraordinary one. But Ian stands firm, insisting that he needs someone who will stay with him and provide a consistent supply of elixirs. He reminds Ridio of Douglas's desire to venture into the forest to find a remedy for his father. Ian urges Ridio to make the right choice, especially for his son's sake. He knows that Douglas is not a typical child and that he can't let him lose his father or fall into the hands of someone like Ragnar. Ridio asks for time to consider the offer. Ian agrees, giving him as much time as he needs. The next day, the captain approaches Ian and informs him that they must return to the Lord's castle. Ian stays silent for a moment, then agrees, though his thoughts linger on Ridio, wondering if a decision has been made. As Ian prepares to leave, Ridio and Douglas appear, calling him back. He turns to them and asks if Ridio has made a decision. Ridio nods, saying he has no choice but to live, and agrees with Ian's suggestion. However, he urges Ian to keep the promises made. Ian reassures him that he will. Douglas hesitates, asking if Ian is certain he can heal his father. The reply is firm, but doubt lingers as he asks again. This time, the unwavering confidence in the answer calms his fears, replacing uncertainty with relief and happiness. For the first time, he begins to see Ian as his boss. Ian is surprised by how quickly Douglas accepted him, wondering if he was always like this in his past life. Just then, a knight on horseback arrives with urgent news. The knight tells Ian that they must head to the castle immediately. Ian asks what's going on, and the knight replies that the prince has crossed the Gamus River. Shocked, Ian wonders how the prince crossed so quickly. The knight explains that the news came that morning. Ian is puzzled and uneasy, questioning why the knights are reporting it now. Ian asks the knight for a favor, to borrow his horse. The knight raises an eyebrow and asks if Ian knows how to ride. Ian admits he doesn't, but he's confident the horse will become his friend. He steps closer to the horse, placing a hand on its head, and focuses his energy to cast a spell to tame it. He tells the horse he's heading to the castle and asks if it will take him there. Without hesitation, the horse sits down, ready for him to ride. Grateful, Ian hops on easily. Turning to the knight, who watches in surprise. He asks Arnold to bring Ridio along, as he plans to leave first. With that, Ian spurs the horse into motion, heading toward the castle. The prince leaves the castle in his carriage. He recalls his father calling him over. Lord Terry informs the prince that Herbert has been meeting with the fifth prince, which catches the prince's attention. He explains that many nobles are aligning themselves with the ivory tower, and the prince should understand that the allegiance of its owner will be crucial. Lord suspects the owner is planning to side with the fifth prince, which could have significant consequences. Lord Terry advises his son to watch out for the cunning fifth prince, Ragnar, who he believes is as smart as they come. Terry is certain Ragnar will try to manipulate Herbert into building an army of followers. Acting fast, he tells his son to win over Ian before the ivory tower gets their hands on him. Back to the present, the prince sighs deeply. Sure, Ian is a magician, but what good is he when surrounded by self-serving sorcerers at the ivory tower? Frustrated, the prince becomes angry, questioning why the ivory tower would choose Ragnar over him as the heir. He vows to eliminate anyone who stands in his way when he becomes king, including those who have betrayed him. His anger simmers as he swears they will regret their choices. His planning is interrupted when Oliver Raywood, the captain of the Second Palace, offers some advice. He suggests informing the Moglians of their arrival first to allow them time to prepare. However, the prince dismisses Oliver's suggestion, unwilling to listen to reason. Instead, he changes the subject, avoiding the issue. Oliver, not one to back down easily, insists they must give the Moglians time to prepare for his arrival, urging the prince to think carefully about their situation. Oliver's way of speaking makes the prince wonder if his family has connections to the northern Moglian lords. Turning to the captain, the prince asks how much longer it will take to reach their destination. The captain responds that it will take another 2 days. The prince thinks for a moment and decides that 2 days will be sufficient. He instructs the captain to send a message to the Moglians, informing them of their arrival. The prince is eager to see how the Guardians of the North, along with the Empire's shield, will prepare for the arrival of royalty in such a short time. He sees it as a challenge he's eager to witness. Although Oliver isn't entirely comfortable with the prince's decision, he has no choice but to agree. At Lord Marcus's castle, preparations are in full swing as the servants meticulously clean every corner of the estate, ensuring that not a speck of dust or disorder is left. The Lord, though hasn't yet received word from the prince, is determined to be ready for his arrival. He assumes that the prince and his entourage are still on their way. Other noble families have already arrived, but the Miffardens and Raywoods have yet to show up. Eventually, news comes that they will be arriving shortly, though they have yet to make their appearance. The Lord, anxious about the proceedings, asks Hogger about Ian's arrival. However, he reports in negative, which only adds to the Lord's growing frustration, but he still decides to head outside. Soon, the knights announce the arrival of the crown prince. The nobles have already begun to gather, and there's a palpable buzz in the air as the prince approaches. Not long after, Ian finally arrives at the castle. He greets Lord Marcus and apologizes for his late arrival. Lord, though relieved, reassures him that his tardiness doesn't matter now that he is finally here. Ian steps beside the king, stunning the nobles. Whispers spread as they question how someone so young gained such power and influence. Lord informs Ian that, per royal summons, he must be present at the highest standing, as per the Empire's laws. The Crown Prince immediately recognizes Ian. He asks if Ian is the famous magician everyone speaks of. Ian, distracted by a woman in the crowd, notices Cecilia. He recognizes her as a spy from the Coldwood Empire, though he keeps his thoughts to himself. Later inside, Oliver notices the prince's growing discomfort. He leans in, advising the prince not to overindulge in the wine, fearing it could attract unwanted attention. The prince scoffs at mingling with nobles from other empires, expressing displeasure about the banquet and the wine. He longs to return to his own empire. Meanwhile, Cecilia, the spy, watches Ian from the shadows, observing him. Assigned by the Coldwood Empire to investigate Ian's abilities, she has been following him, driven by both orders and curiosity. Her mission is clear: observe Ian and, if possible, capture him and his mother to return to the Empire. As she watches Ian, she decides to test the rumors herself. She conjures a magic missile, aiming it at Ian. The spell is swift and precise, but Ian surprises her. Without glancing in her direction, he raises his hand. A shield of magic materializes before him, effortlessly deflecting the bolt. The missile dissipates harmlessly, and Cecilia stands still. Aware of her presence, Ian turns toward her. Quick as a flash, Cecilia confidently declares herself as an esteemed elder from the ivory tower, justifying the magical light as a friendly hello. Ian, unimpressed, skeptically probes why she chose to greet him with a magical light, though he saw right through her attempted attack. As she prepares her next move, Ian calls out her full name. She's stunned. How could he know her name? They've never interacted before. The shock is evident on Cecilia's face as she stands frozen. With disbelief in her voice, she asks Ian how he knew who she was. Ian, calm and collected, answers without turning around. He casually mentions that he wiped out every Cold Walker, covert agents from the Coldwood Empire, who had infiltrated the Empire in his past life. The implication is chilling, but Ian continues. He asks if Cecilia wants him to list other names as well, naming Cold Walkers who once served in the shadows, now erased from existence. With each name, Cecilia's anger builds, the names stirring a deep, boiling rage within her. Fury surges in Cecilia's chest, and she realizes that this encounter isn't going as planned. Without hesitation, she casts fire magic, sending a torrent of flames directly at Ian, determined to make him pay for his audacity and for revealing secrets she thought buried in time. But Ian is prepared. Swift and calculated, he raises his hand, a magical aura forming around him. Surprised by his sudden, aggressive attack, she hurriedly throws up a mana barrier to block it. Little did she know he would come at her with such fury. As she struggles to defend herself, he conjures a fiery pyroblast aimed directly at her. Stuck behind her protective barrier, she panics, briefly resigning herself to a fiery fate. In a last-ditch effort, she drops the barrier and tries to flee, but the flames still manage to singe her as she scurries away. Hours later, she lies sprawled on the ground, utterly drained. Eyeing her young attacker, she realizes he must have depleted his mana with his relentless assault. Anticipating the arrival of others, she frantically hopes they won't uncover her true identity as a spy, especially since her opponent is nothing but a child. Focusing on self-healing, she plans to deal with him once she regains her strength. Suddenly, he stands beside her, saying he will sell her to make a name for himself. Confused, she asks if that will work. He confidently says it will, and reveals he has proof of her and her group's activities, something she didn't know. Shocked and injured, she struggles to understand. Before she can react, knights and the captain arrive, asking what happened. Seeing her injuries, they question Ian. He confesses to causing harm to her and clarifies that he caught her chatting with a mysterious masked individual. He defends his actions by stating that he had no other recourse but to protect himself when she attempted to harm him. The group demands evidence. He maintains that he went incognito to investigate and noticed a similar symbol on both her and the masked man. Oliver orders the knights to search her, a healer objects, claiming she is a sorceress from the ivory tower. The captain insists on uncovering the truth, even if it involves the ivory tower. Despite healers proposing to heal her first, the knights dismiss the suggestion, asserting they can treat her after the search. The knights search her but find nothing unusual. When the captain inquires, they report no suspicious findings. Relieved, the healers urge immediate treatment, questioning his hesitation. Ignoring them, Ian steps closer and uses his magic, revealing a hidden mana seal on her body. She is stunned, unaware of its existence, and wonders how he knew. He calmly presents the mark to the knights, knowing its significance. Cold Walkers like her are secretly marked during training, a fact known only to their managers. He uncovered this detail after a year-long interrogation of one such manager. The captain examines the mark and asks if anyone recognizes it. When no one responds, Ian also confesses his unfamiliarity with it, but insists it is proof of her connection to something ominous. The healers are ordered to heal her but also prepare a mana prison for her detention. She remains silent, overwhelmed by the events. As the preparations continue, the captain speaks to the boy seriously. He assures him that the Emperor will reward him for his efforts if his claims are proven true. The prince is stunned, questioning how a young boy managed to defeat a skilled third-class magician from the ivory tower. The captain confirms the events, highlighting the boy's remarkable talent. Surprised, the prince asks if the captain believes the reports about him. The captain nods, stating the boy's skills and behavior far exceed those of an ordinary child. Wanting to see for himself, the prince tells the captain to bring the boy to him. When the boy arrives, he greets the prince respectfully. The prince quickly brings up what he's heard, that one of the magicians from the ivory tower was actually a spy from Coldwood and highly skilled. He praises the boy for defeating and capturing her, recognizing his courage and talent. Ian feels a swell of pride at the prince's praise, but keeps his composure. Impressed, the prince offers to reward him and asks if there's anything he desires. Sensing a possible test, Ian takes a moment to consider before requesting permission to visit the old ivory tower site. The prince is surprised by the request. He asks if the boy really knows about the old site and why he wants to go there, saying there's not much left to see. Ian replies that he's only heard about the place in stories and is curious to see it for himself. The prince is puzzled by the odd request from the lad, wondering why a quirky kid would want such a thing instead of something fancy. However, he decides to accompany him there. Little does the prince know, Ian has a hidden agenda for wanting to go to the location. He's scheming to uncover something crucial hidden beneath the ruins. The item he seeks is the dragon's language scroll, a vital artifact for understanding time magic. This ancient scroll holds the essence of the dragon's language. In his past life, he discovered the scroll just a few years before his death, but its complex content was too advanced for him to fully grasp. Now, as a child, he wonders how much more he can understand in this lifetime. That evening, his mother begins her first long journey with him, Ridio, and others. She is thrilled, eagerly looking out of the carriage window. He agrees to let her enjoy the view while Ridio promises to guide her around the capital. Though his rough appearance might suggest otherwise, Ridio boasts about his deep familiarity with the city. When they arrive at the capital, the vice captain, Paul, informs Ian that they will be staying for 2 days. Since the prince has given his orders, Ian is free to explore the city during their stay. Paul offers to lead everyone to their lodgings, asking them to follow him. Meanwhile, in the village, the chief is stunned to see the prince, never imagining someone of his rank would visit such a humble place. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he declares the moment a historic honor for the village. The prince, however, downplays the chief's effusive thanks, insisting it's no big deal. Ian watches the interaction closely. He is struck by how kind and approachable the prince seems compared to how he acted in the boy's past life. Back then, the prince often wore a harsh and cold expression, especially with Ragnar around. He begins to understand why the emperor holds such high regard for the first prince. It's likely due to his genuine care for the people. Later, Douglas approaches Ian and eagerly asks when he plans to visit the old ivory tower. He admits he's always wanted to see the place as well. Ian knows he must explore the underground areas at dawn, but agrees to accompany Douglas the next day. He gets thrilled and can't contain the excitement, drawing the attention of his father. His growing admiration for Ian doesn't go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Ridio, curious about Ian's unusual behavior, decides to dig deeper and ask his mother about it. To his surprise, Mrs. Page shares the touching story of Ian's father, who mysteriously vanished before Ian was even born. She paints a picture of a young boy wise beyond his years, trying to fill the void left by his missing father. Intrigued by this heartbreaking tale, Ridio wonders if Ian's father was a magician, but she quickly dispels that idea with a sad shake of her head. She reveals that Ian's dad, Fran, was just a regular Joe. As she starts to mention something else, she abruptly changes course and insists there's nothing to worry about. There's definitely more to this story than meets the eye. To Ian, the journey felt like chasing a dream along the road of stars, an endless path far from the ivory tower and the emperor. Long after the Unification War, it felt surreal, like a quest with no clear end. He wonders if his presence in the ivory tower during his past life was mere coincidence. Yet, as he reflects, he realizes it isn't. Some unseen force, perhaps fate, guided him there. When he steps into the tower again, the place feels eerily familiar. Its haunting grandeur remains frozen in time, untouched by the years. 3 centuries earlier, the Empire was ravaged by a brutal war between the magicians of the Ivory Tower and the Dragonians, descendants of dragons who wield dark, powerful magic. The Dragonians, backed by an army of gargoyles at their side, nearly brought the Empire to its knees. But fear not, for the Emperor and a clever high-class mage banded together to rally the troops. They vanquished the Dragonians, wiped out the gargoyles, and brought harmony back to the land. After the war, the magician, hailed as a hero, turns down the emperor's throne. Instead, Mikkel decides to be the tower owner and establishes the capital, Greenriverdium. Over time, however, the ivory tower's glory fades, leaving it abandoned and forgotten, reduced to crumbling ruins. As Ian stands amidst these ruins, he notices an underground passage he recalls from his previous life. Driven by curiosity, he steps inside. The passage is pitch dark, so Ian uses light magic to illuminate the way. A soft glow reveals damp stone walls and a profound silence that amplifies every sound he makes. Deeper into the passage, Ian stumbles upon a massive statue. It looms over him, intricately carved with lifelike detail. He recalls his first encounter. The statue springs to life, its roar echoing through the underground chamber and shaking the walls. Its eyes blaze with an eerie glow, revealing it to be no ordinary statue but a gargoyle. Ian knows that these creatures are believed to be extinct for 300 years, but one has been hiding here all along. The gargoyle lunges at him, its massive claws slicing through the air. Ian reacts swiftly, casting aqua ball magic to counter the attack. However, the spell proves ineffective, with water splashing harmlessly against the creature. Frustration tightens its grip on him. Defeating gargoyles had been effortless in his previous life, but his current abilities are far from what they once were. Ian steadies himself, acknowledging the need for a greater effort. As the gargoyle charges again, its claws poised to strike, he channels his mana and casts Ice Spear. The spell strikes true, piercing the gargoyle's exterior and eliciting a pained roar. Wasting no time, he unleashes lightning magic in quick succession. The combined assault overwhelms the creature, reducing it to a pile of lifeless rubble. He takes a deep breath, wiping the sweat from his brow as the chamber trembles softly. Just as he expected, a hidden passage begins to emerge, the ground shifting to reveal a new path. Without hesitation, he casts Feather Fall magic, allowing him to descend through the opening slowly and safely. The gentle spell cushions his fall, and he lands softly in a vast, dimly lit chamber. On a pedestal, illuminated by a faint light, rests the scroll he has been seeking for so long. His heart races as he reaches out, his fingers brushing against the aged parchment. This time he has found it far earlier than in his previous life. As he holds the scroll, he wonders who might have hidden such a powerful artifact here. Was it a dragon guarding its ancient knowledge? Or perhaps the first magician determined to preserve this invaluable treasure? The dragon's language remains one of the greatest mysteries, an ancient tongue infused with mana. In his past life he could barely understand fragments of it, but he knows that mastering it now could alter everything. However, when he carefully unrolls the scroll, his excitement turns to shock. The parchment is completely blank. Not a single word appears. His mind races, struggling to understand what he is seeing. Could it be because he used it in his previous life, or perhaps it has lost its power, or was never meant to be used again? Frustration grips Ian as he clutches the book, struggling to summon the fragments of the dragon's language he once knew. No words come. He recalls that the language isn't spoken with mere words, it's a magical force intertwined with mana itself. The truth hits him hard, the dragon's language is lost, and with it, the power of time magic. The path to the past is closed. Disappointment weighs heavily on him. He had hoped this second life would be his chance to undo past mistakes and rewrite the tragedies he once faced. Now, the harsh reality sinks in. Without time magic, this second chance feels far more uncertain. As the convoy draws closer to the capital of Greenriverdium, the massive gates and impressive skyline become visible, marking the city's approach. Ian stays on high alert, his mind preoccupied with the dangerous situation Cecilia is in. He knows that Coldwood's operatives could strike at any moment, and the potential danger of Cecilia revealing anything about him only adds to the pressure. The secrecy surrounding the Coldwalkers makes everything even more tense, and he is fully aware that things could quickly spiral out of control if they aren't careful. Their journey comes to a halt at the city gates when the leader of the Ivory Tower steps forward, holding a royal decree in his hands. The decree gives the tower full authority over her, effectively taking control of her fate. Paul, clearly frustrated and angered by this sudden intervention, challenges the leader's decision. However, the tower leader remains calm and unbothered, explaining that all matters concerning Cecilia are now under the Ivory Tower's control. The timing of the decree feels off. almost as if it was carefully planned in advance, raising suspicions. The knights who had been responsible for capturing her expressed their anger and disappointment. They had risked their lives to bring her in, only to see the ivory tower take over at the last moment. Ian watches closely, realizing the true motivation behind the tower's actions. The tower isn't interested in protecting her, rather, they want to prevent her from being interrogated by the knights, whom they see as unworthy of handling such a valuable prisoner. Their real plan is to imprison her in the deepest, most secure dungeons of the ivory tower, all to protect their own interests and maintain their powerful reputation. Ian's mother, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, voices her concern. However, he reassures her, his calm demeanor belying a quiet confidence. He believes that this new development will ease some of the immediate pressures he faces, even if the situation remains tense. As the convoy moves forward, he is informed that there will be a brief stop before they head to the imperial palace. They arrive at a grand mansion, its size and elegance immediately noticeable. This place is familiar to him. It had been given to him by the Prince Ragnar in his past life when he reached the rank of 5th-class magician. The memories flood back as he gazes at the mansion. The prince gestures toward the impressive building and asks if he is pleased with the sight. He explains that the king had specifically chosen to bestow this mansion upon him as a great honor. He graciously expresses his thanks, acknowledging the prince's kindness. However, inwardly, he cannot help but reflect on the striking difference between his past and present lives. In his previous life, at the age of 26, he had earned this mansion through years of dedication and hard work. Now, at just 12 years old, he is receiving it 14 years earlier than before, a clear sign that his life is unfolding in a completely different way. The mansion before him, even more magnificent than he remembers, symbolizes the privileges he now enjoys at such a young age. The prince then informs him that the mansion will be a home for his family, while he himself will accompany the prince to the imperial palace. He also mentions that it is time to greet the king, now that they are in the capital. He politely asks for permission to explore the mansion with his mother before heading to the palace, and the prince, ever gracious, gives his consent. He thanks him, leading his mother inside. Upon entering the mansion, his mother is struck silent by the sheer size and luxury of the place. Every corner seems to shine with wealth and status, luxury beyond anything she has ever known. When he tells her that this will be their permanent home, she is left speechless, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn their lives have taken. He, however, feels a bittersweet pang in his chest as he watches his mother take it all in. In his past life, his mother had already passed away by the time he came to own this mansion. No matter how powerful he became as a magician, he could never undo death. But now, in this life, he has the chance to share this moment with her, to fulfill the dreams they never realized together before. He takes a moment to savor the scene as he watches his mother explore the mansion with a look of sheer delight, a look he had never witnessed in his past life. Her happiness fills him with a profound sense of fulfillment, a feeling he never got to experience before. As she gazes in awe at the spacious, ornate rooms and the luxury surrounding them, she expresses her concern about how they will manage the upkeep of such a grand home. He, hearing her words, silently vows to himself that she will never have to worry about housework again. After spending some time admiring their new home, they head to the imperial palace of Greenriverdium. As they get closer to the palace, he feels nervous. In his past life, he never had the chance to meet the emperor in person. By the time he finished his studies and understood the world, the emperor was already dying. Even though he never met him, he admired the emperor from a distance, respecting his wisdom and decisions. Now, standing near the palace, he feels excited and responsible at the thought of meeting this legendary ruler. Walking through the palace, his attention is drawn to the prince's quarters nearby. His thoughts turn to him, the 5th prince, son of a concubine. He inherited the emperor's cold-hearted nature instead of his wisdom or kindness. In his past life, the prince was both his close friend and biggest rival. Now, he wonders how he should act around him in this life. He isn't sure what to do with the prince. As he thinks about all this, he is led to the emperor's chamber. Ian enters the room and sees the emperor sitting at his desk, exuding an aura of authority. He quickly kneels before the emperor, feeling the weight of the moment. He apologizes, saying that someone as lowly as himself dares to greet his majesty. The emperor, however, motions for him to rise and acknowledges Ian as the hero of the north. He commends him for the incredible feats he has accomplished in such a short time. Ian, grateful for the recognition, thanks the emperor sincerely. The emperor gestures for him to stand. As Ian rises, the emperor's next words trigger a memory. The emperor asks Ian if he likes the mansion he was given, one of the royal homes. Ian, in awe, responds that it is far grander than he ever imagined. The emperor presses him further, asking if he truly likes it. He confirms, adding that his mother is also pleased with it. The emperor, noting his response, acknowledges that he sent his heir to bring Ian to the palace and granted him the mansion as a gesture of goodwill. Ian feels a twinge of confusion, uncertain of the emperor's exact motives. The emperor's actions are deliberate, but Ian wonders what he truly seeks from him. He begins to consider how he should handle this interaction. In the past, Ragnar was always blunt and direct with the emperor, and Ian had always respected that about him. Now, standing before the emperor, he contemplates whether he should adopt a similar approach. After a moment of quiet reflection, Ian realizes he is still just 12 years old. He decides it's wiser to play the part of a child for now, understanding that it would be best to avoid sounding too confident or overly mature. With this in mind, he speaks up, telling the emperor that others have said his magic is better than most. The emperor listens attentively to his words, then asks if he means to say that he believes he is more talented than others. Ian hesitates, unsure of how to respond. He doesn't want to overstate anything or appear arrogant, and for a moment he remains silent. The weight of the emperor's gaze makes the silence feel heavier, and he struggles to find the right words. The emperor waits expectantly, but Ian still isn't sure what to say. The prince speaks up, addressing the emperor. He tells the emperor not to worry about his response, suggesting that there is nothing a child like him could possibly know. He is surprised by the prince's unexpected defense. It's the first time he's seen the prince speak up for someone else, and this shift in behavior makes him think more highly of him. Perhaps supporting the prince in the future might be a good idea, after all. The emperor, unfazed by the prince's comment, continues. He tells him that he summoned him to the palace because of his exceptional talents. The emperor mentions the praise he has received from both knights and magicians, particularly for uncovering a spy, a feat not easily accomplished. The emperor's approval feels genuine, and he expresses that he, as someone who has already contributed so much, deserves a reward. He asks him if there is anything he desires. He realizes that this is his chance to ask for something in return for his efforts. However, remembering that he is still a child, he decides to keep his request simple and age-appropriate. After a brief pause, he asks the emperor if he can explore the palace. The emperor is briefly surprised by the request, but he explains that he wants to see the entire palace so he can describe its magnificence to his mother. The prince, watching the exchange, reflects on his own past. When he had been rewarded, he too had asked for something simple, just a visit to the old ivory tower. Understanding his curiosity, something typical for a child, the prince advises the emperor to grant the request. The emperor pauses for a moment before agreeing. He then hands him a seal that grants him access to nearly every part of the palace and tells him that he can show it to anyone else if he needs assistance navigating the palace. The emperor then asks if he desires anything else. He, content with his request, shakes his head and replies that he doesn't want anything more. However, the emperor, still eager to reward him for his accomplishments, gestures for the maids to bring in a safe filled with money. He presents it to him as an additional token of his appreciation. The emperor also assures him that the maids who maintain the palace will be sent to his mansion to ensure his family's comfort. He feels relieved, knowing that his mother no longer has to worry about the upkeep of the house. He thanks the emperor sincerely before leaving the room. As he walks out of the palace, he starts to feel more suspicious than impressed by the emperor. He wonders if the emperor treats everyone with such cold distance, and the thought lingers in his mind. He looks at the seal in his hand and remembers the words, "Suspicion is important for ruling." He understands the deeper meaning of those words as he walks away. Determined to stay focused on his goals, he moves forward, knowing his time is limited. He heads to the palace garden, hoping to continue without drawing attention. A guard stops him at the entrance and asks why he's there. He calmly shows the seal, explaining that the emperor told him to use it to pass through. The guard, recognizing the seal, stands at attention and offers to guide him through. He reaches the sanctuary, feeling his heart race. The sanctuary is a sacred place that only the emperor and empress can enter. In the past, it had been spoken of with admiration, saying even princes couldn't go inside. A dream had been to see it one day, but he isn't just going to admire it from outside. He's determined to uncover its secrets. The doors creak open as he steps in, feeling the quiet weigh on him. Every movement feels wrong in such a sacred place, but his determination is stronger than any unease. He walks deeper inside, trying to stay unnoticed. A guard stands nearby, but with a simple flick of his wrist, he uses his magic to make the guard fall into a deep sleep. With the guard out of the way, he starts looking around. He wonders if the first emperor's coffin hides something more than just a body. Could there be an artifact or a clue tied to the power of this place? As he moves deeper into the sanctuary, his instincts lead him to a corner that feels important. His magic pulses faintly as he gets closer, confirming that this is the spot he's been searching for. The area has an ancient aura, full of the power from the first emperor's legacy. He knows with a sense of triumph that he has found what he came for.